Hi everybody, before this video starts, I just want to do a quick intro because this is my first YouTube video. So if you're coming from my TikTok at Strawberry Oats Forever, or you're seeing me for the first time here on YouTube, welcome, hello. I am so excited about starting this channel. I started these series on TikTok and I started with the Hugh Hefner series. I just thought he was super interesting. People enjoyed watching it. I love making these. Any celebrity, any organization, any celebrity couple. I'm just super nosy, honestly. But anyways, I am bringing the Biggie and Tupac series over here to YouTube because it didn't work that well with TikTok's guidelines. So we're going to try it out here. And that being said, it is in TikTok format. But from now on, my YouTube videos will be in YouTube format. And I'm going to reserve YouTube for longer series, true crime, things that are a little bit racier, things that wouldn't really work for TikTok. I would really appreciate if you enjoyed this video, if you would like and subscribe. I appreciate all of your support, especially if you're coming from TikTok. Thank you so much for following me over here. And if you're seeing me for the first time on YouTube, I hope that you stick around. I'm very excited to start making series on here as well. And with that being said, let's get into Biggie and Tupac. Now this video is going to be on the feud specifically, and there is a ton of detail on that. This is probably the hardest I've worked for any series ever, but I'm not going to go into specific detail about each of their lives. When I get a YouTube, I will do specific series about each of them, and that's where we can go into all the interviews, the autopsy reports in depth, all of that stuff. Also, I am well aware that there's still going to be people that know way more about this than me, that have made this their entire life, that have found stuff that I haven't found. If you're one of those people, if you think I've missed something or forgotten something, just drop it in the comments. I am more than happy for that, and people can look in the comments and find more information. Okay, so jumping right in, Biggie is a Gemini Sun, a Virgo Moon, and a Pisces Rising, which I totally see the Pisces Rising for some reason. He just looks so sweet. He was born in Brooklyn, New York, and of course we know his real name is Christopher Wallace. His mom didn't actually realize until she was pregnant with him that his father was actually married, so he is of course not in the picture. His mother is Jamaican and he is Jamaican also, so they visited Jamaica a lot when he was younger, and it really had a big influence on his music later on, specifically with reggae and country music. Also, his mother just seems like the sweetest woman. She really does. He went to a Catholic school growing up, and he was described as really shy and quiet, and he has said that he was always shy and quiet. But obviously there was a voice in there. He was always bigger as a kid and as an adult, obviously. That's why his name is Biggie. And he also had a lazy eye, so he did get picked on quite a bit in school. But as we know, bullying makes you funny, and he had a really good sense of humor and good social skills, it was said. His friends have also said that he was writing rap music and hip-hop music even when he was in elementary school, and then eventually one of his friends got a turntable so that he could rap to beats. Unfortunately, in high school is also when he started selling drugs. And obviously his mother did not know about this, but later on after his death, she did find out about it. And he also ended up being known as a pretty good rapper, wouldn't you know it? And the Netflix special has videos of him freestyling. I highly recommend watching it. I can't put them into this video because there's inappropriate content, but it's honestly just always shocking to me how people can freestyle. It's an insane talent. And many of the people that he was hanging out with in high school would later become what was known as the Junior Mafia. So let's give a little overview of Tupac's childhood real quick. Also, he was the cutest baby. So he's a Gemini Sun and Aries Moon, and we don't know his rising. If you have a guess, drop it in the comments. My guess personally is Taurus. Anyways, he was born in Harlem, and actually when his mother was pregnant with him, she was on trial for plans to blow up some department stores. She was a member of the Black Panther Party, but they actually were acquitted. His mother was very intentional in naming him. Tupac is supposedly the name of the last Incan chief that was brutally unalived by conquistadors, and Shakur is a black nationalist name. Before he moved into middle school, he moved around a lot within New York, and his father was not present, although his little sister's father was in the picture for a while until he had to go into hiding. He was actually on the FBI's top 10 most wanted list for a while. He moved to Baltimore when he was around 13, which is where he met Jada Pinkett Smith, and that is also around the time that he says that his mom started to have drug issues, although she says it was more around the time when he was 17. He went to the Baltimore School for the Arts, where he learned poetry, dancing, acting, Shakespeare, all the artsy stuff, and he was known to be super sweet and a super good kid. However, around the age of 17, things started to not go so well. His mother was pregnant apparently and doing drugs, and they really just couldn't make ends meet, so he ended up moving out to California. And from what's been said, it seems like he lived with a family friend when he first went out there and kind of couch crashed for a little bit. And then his mother came out to California. He lived with her some. But he wasn't super well liked when he was in California. According to him, people kind of didn't like him because he was artsy, basically. He was writing poetry. His friends have said that he had like a good side and an evil side. And before the Gemini slander starts in the comments, it has nothing to do with him being a Gemini. I don't even think that's true of Geminis, in my opinion. But they did say that they felt like the bad side of him was out more towards the end of his career. And just to be clear, everybody, me, you, Tupac, literally everyone, Biggie, has a good side and a bad side. He's just a human. But it is interesting that they said that towards the end of his career, he was kind of not being his best self. In 1990, Tupac got a job working for the Digital Underground, where he was a dancer and also kind of a tour manager. And a year later, in 1991, in Biggie's life, Biggie was arrested for dealing, and he went to jail for 9 months for that. In the summer of 1991, Tupac meets Stretch, and they start working with Shock G, Mage, and DJ Kalo in a group they're calling Live Squad. And the rest of them had worked previously together as Live Squad, but now they were doing some production for Tupac, some features in his songs. And they also show up as Grand Imperial Thug Music, which has a hand in producing multiple of Tupac's songs. So August 15th, 1991, Tupac signs with Interscope Records. And at the time, Interscope was just starting out, but they were with Time Warner, so they had good backing. And he actually got signed because one of the founders played one of his tapes for his daughter, and she absolutely loved it, and they said he had such a great stage presence. He released his first single, Trapped, with them, and then his first album, Twopocalypse Now, came out on November 12th of 1991. And this record majorly covered police brutality against young black men. The most popular song on it, though, was definitely Brenda's Got a Baby, and that song is truly haunting. And that song, and really all his songs, show that he really was a poet at heart, and he said that he was trying to thread a main character through the narrative. And he very much saw his music as art with political importance. And speaking of political, Vice President Dan Quayle, who, if you don't remember him, he was under George H.W. Bush, it's fine, I didn't remember him either, said that this record had no place in our society. Cool. Well, too bad it's here. And I mention this mostly just because this is kind of going to be a theme that law enforcement isn't that fond of him. Then, January 17th of 1992, Tupac stars in Juice with Samuel L. Jackson and Queen Latifah. Big role. And on Biggie's side, in March of 1992, back in Brooklyn, he was featured in Unsigned Hype, which was in Source magazine. And the Source was really a hip-hop tastemaker at this point in time. And how this happened was that Biggie had a friend named Damien who set him up with a guy named 50, who they did some demos together, and then they sent them off to a DJ named Mr. C. Mr. C then sent the tapes over to Matty C, who we see in the corner here, and he said he knew almost instantly that they needed to be featured. And this was one of those moments in Biggie's life where he thought that, I could actually possibly make it in rap, and really pushed him to go for it. And after that, Matty C had a chat with Sean Combs, aka P. Diddy, aka Puff Daddy, aka Puff. There's a lot of different names. I'm mostly going to call him Sean Combs and Puff. And at the time, he was the VP of Uptown Records. And supposedly at the time, he was looking for new talent, specifically somebody who could do a more hard, tough style of rap. Some sources say that it happened at a club, but Matty C said that Sean Combs just called him up and was looking for talent, and he recommended Biggie. And as soon as Sean Combs heard Biggie, he apparently thought, thank you God, because it was exactly what he was looking for. Less pretty, more grungy, more street vibe. So then they had a meeting together, Biggie and Puff, and he asked him to freestyle on the spot because he was obviously in disbelief that he was that good, but it was true, and he signed him immediately. So August 22nd, 1992, Tupac is signing autographs and a fight breaks out. A weapon was fired in that fight, allegedly by Tupac, and it's unclear what the intention was, whether it was aimed specifically at someone or just to get the fight to stop. Either way, a bullet ended up hitting a little boy in the head and ending his life tragically. And there was not a lot of clarity at all on what happened, so they ended up settling it in a civil case. February 16th, 1993, Tupac released his second album, Strictly For My blank. Can look it up. Can't put the album cover on here either. Anyways, this album made him extremely famous, although people did start to suspect that he might be in the Bloods because the album cover was red. But that was not true, and he wasn't a member of the Crips either. He said that he felt like he was more of an observer, a reporter. He wanted to know what their life was like, but he didn't want to be directly involved. This is also supposedly where his signature bandana style came from, so he would wear a blue bandana around Bloods, a red one around Crips, so that the other gang knew that he wasn't in with that specific gang. This did lead some gang members to feel like he was being inauthentic, and he really tried to toughen up his image to show them that he was from the same background as them and he was like them even if he wasn't a part of their group. And here's a quote from his friend Man, Charles Fuller. And Tupac felt, I have to prove that I'm hard. I would say to him, most gangsters are people who wish they didn't have to be hard. Also speaking on this album, which the N-word is in the title, he talked about how he wanted to reclaim the N-word and turn it into a positive thing that stood for never ignorant, getting goals accomplished, and really just take something that was rooted in a lot of hatred and turn it into something reshaped for their community as a rallying point, as a positivity point. March 9th, 1993, Tupac meets Madonna at the Soul Train Awards, and this is not Madonna, this is Rosie Perez who introduced them. And here's Rosie with Madonna, and she was 35 and he was 22. After this, they apparently started dating, although they kept their relationship extremely private. It was mostly just whispers around town and then seeing them together occasionally. Then March 13th, 1993, Tupac is at Fox Studios filming for a TV show and an incident occurs. According to witnesses, supposedly, he and Charles Fuller, aka Man, were sitting in a limo, either just waiting there or waiting there and smoking. And the driver came back to the limo and he either told them to get out or told them to stop smoking, and a fight ensued. At one point, the driver reached into the trunk and got something out of a bag, and Tupac assumed that it would be a firearm, so he started beating him up. A firearm was later found at the scene, but it was unclear whose it was. And Tupac and Charles Fuller, aka Man, did get arrested for it, but they ended up getting the charges dropped because they said they thought that he was getting out a firearm and they were acting in self-defense. On April 5th of 1993, Tupac is arrested again for, allegedly, trying to hit another rapper with a baseball bat at a Michigan State concert. So supposedly first he just got angry and threw a microphone, but microphones are super expensive and it belonged to that rapper, so they got angry. Apparently, at that point, Tupac swung the bat he was holding as a prop at them, but Tupac claims that he never swung at anyone, he was just holding it as a prop and they must have been intimidated. There was also a riot at the concert, so things really just got out of hand. And according to Tupac, when the audience started flooding the stage, he heard his road manager calling for him and he thought that something was wrong, so that's why he started going into the crowd, and he happened to be holding the baseball bat. And people were actually pretty mad at Tupac for this event. They felt like he was acting unnecessarily, but he really didn't care. He really didn't. And I was going to play you a clip of him saying how much he doesn't care, but there's too many expletives in it for this platform, so feel free to look it up. In other news, June 29th, 1993, Biggie releases his first single, Party and BS. It was released under the name Big, as you can probably see, and it did really well, but he wasn't really seeing any money from the music yet, so he was pretty much doing anything he could to make ends meet still at this point. And his mother also got breast cancer around this time, so things were very hard on Biggie. July 15th, 1993, Tupac does an interview with MTV, and they ask him about this show, Menace to Society, that he was fired from, and he has some stuff to say.
They fired me, but did it in a roundabout punk snitch way. So I caught them on the streets and beat they...
That's as much of that as I can play because it is expletive. But unfortunately, he admitted to assaulting someone on national TV. And then the Hughes brothers took him to court over it. On the bright side, on July 23rd of 1993, he stars in Poetic Justice with Janet Jackson. And good news for Biggie, August 8th of 1993, he has his first child, Tiana, with his girlfriend at the time, Jan Jackson. And at this point, his mom, at the very least, was concerned that he wouldn't be able to provide for his daughter. And I do think this was probably an event that really spurred Biggie on to fight to get his name out there and to get success. But then Sean Combs is fired from Uptown Records.